Hello there, welcome to this week's plugin of the week. If you didn't see us last week, we were joined by Ski Oakenfull. He took us through the awesome Tal Uno LX plugin, which is kind of a little Juno 61, so make sure you check out that video after you watch this. But I'm gonna go through the Native Instruments Monarch Synth, which is an absolutely awesome mini Moog clone. Amazing for bass sounds. It actually was made, as far as the legend goes, by an employee in Native Instruments in Berlin for himself. And they loved it so much in the office, they decided to release it. So here it is, if you want to cut to the screen. Basically, if you've ever seen a mini Moog, which looks like this, classic Model D, classic mono synth, you will probably recognize this. But if you haven't, it's essentially a 3-oscillator synth, one which can double up as an LFO, and it's got 2 envelopes and a filter. And that sounds very simple. It's because it sounds awesome, and that's all it needs. So basically, immediately, this is just as soon as you open it, you get this preset. It's called Defined, it sounds like this. I'm just gonna dial it back a bit, make it even more simple. I'm gonna turn off this oscillator to switch oscillator 1 to a saw wave, turn it down a bit, make it a bit more bassy. And I'm just gonna open up all of the filter settings so you can hear what it sounds like. So, there we go, that's the pure, I believe that's a saw wave tone. And we'll get to all the rest of that stuff in a minute. So, as you can see, very clean harmonics, subtle waveform variations around here, which is because the oscillator is unstable by design. That's the way the Native Instruments wanted to make it, and that's the way the original sounded. So, very clean, which makes it very easy to mix, but also makes it super, super cut through and really cool. So, let's start to get things a bit more interesting with Monarch. These lights will turn on each oscillator, so we just turn on the second one and just bring it into the mix. So even though these waveforms are identical, they're both saw waves, and they're both at 16 feet, there's still a chorusing, and that's because the way this synth is designed to emulate the original, when you press a note on a key in the original, it was never exactly the same voltage going to each oscillator, so it created a very natural chorus, and that's what we're hearing when we press play on this. I mean, you can see that on the frequency analyzer in Ableton. So immediately, awesome sound. This is up with absolutely no filtering yet. Just 2 oscillators playing together. Let's start to crank up the load a little bit. Essentially, increases the input that goes into the filter. It gives you a little 70s style sepia light going on. And once you start to bring down the cutoff, bring down the sustain and bring up the resonance. You can hear the self-oscillation, which was a big part of the sound of the mini Moog, start to happen. And hopefully, to you guys, it sounds pretty cool. Some interesting things about Monarch, it actually operates in 88 or 96 sample rate no matter what your project is. That's the way it's designed. You can change it, but they recommend not to. It does hit the CPU a bit harder if you don't change it. So if you've got an older computer, just make sure you stick it on 44.1 or 48, depending on how you're running it. Let me just run through the oscillators with you. Pretty simple stuff. A triangle wave, and then a tri-saw wave combo, which was part of the original too. Then there's a straight up saw wave, a square wave, and 2 wide and narrow pulse oscillators. What's interesting about this is there is no pulse width modulation native to the synth, but you can assign a very simple pulse width modulation using oscillator 3. If you just turn off key tracking, which is what KT stands for, it becomes an LFO, and then you can just set it to modulate whatever you want. So anyway, back to the sounds. It's starting to sound pretty cool. There's a MM, which is of course the mini Moog filter. They've also added 3 other filters which aren't on the original, which is the low pass 2, which I believe is a 12 decibel per octave filter, and then a 6 decibel, and then a band pass classic. So let's just crank that out properly. Do you have to watch your levels in Monarch? Because it likes to clip, so just make sure you keep an eye on that. So there you go, that's the sound. Yeah, I actually got to go straight to the mini Moog, it's classic. So let's get a bass sound going. So contour is essentially how much the filter envelope modulates the cutoff. So the higher it is, the brighter it will be at the start. The more you bring it down, the duller it gets. Pretty simple again. And then it can also be inverted, so it creates a certain kind of attack in the filter. So it's pretty nice. Let me see what else I can show you guys. So if you want to assign Oscillator 3 as a LFO, modulation switches, again, pretty straightforward stuff. Modulation switches on. You can either have the modulation source as an Oscillator 3 or the noise oscillator, which we'll get to in a second. Increase if on your MIDI keyboard or using the GUI. And it's very slowly begins to modulate. Let me just turn up the sustain so you can hear that a bit more obviously. Classic 70s mono synth sounds. And actually, I should mention, this is actually monophonic synth. Most of the other Mini-Moog emulations, because there's loads of them out there, they allow you to switch it into polyphonic, but Nether Instruments, straight up authentic stuff, just one note at a time, which does help a lot with the authenticity of the sound. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you're not a purist, and you prefer the digital vibes, you can switch off a lot of the features that give Monarch its sound, which includes if you actually mute all the oscillators. Don't know if you guys can hear that, but you should be able to hear it. Still, you can see it in the frequency analyzer down here. There's still something going on, and that's because it has a thing called leakage, which allows the oscillators to drift around. And as the control voltage on the original synth would trigger things, even if they were switched off, the voltage would make a noise. So it kind of emulates that, but you can just turn that off. And yeah, I think that's kind of it for Monarch. I'm just going to play you guys a little. I've been showing you all about bass stuff, but it's not just about bass. It can do really cool leads as well. So let me just show you guys a quick little loop I put together. Let's see what this sounds like. Maybe turn the synth on. So that's kind of like a little. So what I've done here is just two sides again, chorusing naturally. They're not even detuned from each other. And a little bit of noise, just to give it that little bit of hiss, which I love on the old school sounds. And yeah, let's bring a beat in. Some hi-hats. Immediately that kind of like retro chromio kind of vibes. Then you probably automate that. Just write the track for the breakdowns and drops and stuff. Very simple stuff, and then put some strings in. And finally, this is just to show you guys a little bit of a different sound from Monarch. Let's put this up a few octaves. So it's not just for bass, it can be leads, it can be whatever you want. Again, very simple stuff. It's a very simple synth. It sounds fantastic. If you just want to get stuck into it, I highly recommend that one for bass. You might find yourself not even using anything ever again, except for Monarch. It's 89 quid, so it's a bargain, but I think it comes with Reactor 6, which is 169 quid, so it might be worth your while checking that out. And while we're here, we might as well just dive in and show you guys what it looks like in the back end. For any of you super nerdy people like me who want to dive in, this is what it looks like in the back end of Reactor. If you're feeling very adventurous, you can dive in there and change some stuff. We'll see you next Friday for another plugin of the week. And make sure you check out Monarch. And if you want to see anything else, just make sure you put it in the comments, and we'll do our best to show you guys. Cheers.